so much for joining us today. My name is Amy Nye. I am the Partnerships and Training Manager here at SunlightFoundation, and I'm joined by a couple of folks here. Andrew Pendleton, who is our developer who created Docket Wrench, the tool we'll be talking about today, as well as a couple of folks from our reporting team. So just to get started, I'm sure a lot of folks here are very familiar with the regulatory process, but just for folks who are not as familiar, to give you a little bit of background as to why we created this tool and why we think that this tool is useful, just to let you know what that process is. So when bills are passed into law, it is first then codified into the U.S. code, and then parts of that text authorizes the government agencies to create regulations to implement that law. And after that happens, the agencies propose the rules, known as the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, and is listed in the Federal Register. The proposed rule and the documents that support those rules are filed as a docket, which is why we decided to name the tool Docket Wrench, to help you unlock and unpack some of the information that are part of that docket. And it is open to the public for a commenting period. The commenting period varies by the docket and the proposed rule, and is usually listed as a part of that. And then agencies after that will receive comments, and individuals can comment, and organizations and businesses comment as well on the docket. And the agencies will revise the regulation as deemed necessary and will issue a final rule, and many times that is what is codified in the Code of Federal Regulations. And this is a very, very simplified version of how the regulatory process works. Obviously, there are many exceptions, such as when there are revised rules and they go through more than one commenting period. So why is the regulatory process important? Well, it's important because while the lawmakers are making the laws, a lot of times they don't necessarily go into the nitty-gritties of what that actually means in terms of the impact onto individuals and also into businesses. So we have some examples on the screen that talks a couple of examples of what some of those issues are. Worker safety, environmental protection, food and drug approvals. All of this goes through a regulatory process. And then additionally, the regulatory process is important because it provides some insight and some transparency into how the public commenting, that process works. So a lot of agencies actually use a site called regulations.gov, but not every agency uses that to manage the commenting process. So I'm just going to open that up quickly. So this is regulations.gov. So here you can search for different rules and comments and whatnot. And this is where a lot of our data actually comes from in creating Docket Wrench. And also you can see the participating agencies that use regulations.gov, and subsequently we get the data from. So there is a list here. You can actually find out more and see the agencies that are not participating in the process as well. So as I was saying before, that's why part of the reason why we decided to create Docket Wrench, and I think it might be useful to show, we created a training video to go with it. You can also actually watch this video later at our training portal. So that is at training.sunlightfoundation.com, and you'll see it here. And it is the Docket Wrench link. So feel free to check out the video after the webinar if you just want to watch it at a slower pace and at your own pace to get more from the video. So I think the best way to start training on Docket Wrench is actually get into the tool. So the tool is found at docketwrench.sunlightfoundation.com. And this is what the site looks like. And if you, a lot of times folks who are interested in regulatory comments, they already have a docket number in which they're searching for. Or if you're interested in a specific agency, you can actually just start typing that in, and it will start to populate. So let's say, for instance, I am interested in the Department of Education. I will select that. I will hit search. And what you see here is a number of different data sets that are being provided or back to you in the search. You can see the agencies and organizations, a list of dockets in which the Department of Education is listed as the agency, as well as notices, rules, and proposed rules, and comments. So you can also put in other words to filter down your search, and also filter by submitter. But right now, let's just explore the agency. So this is the agency page for the Department of Education. And you can see the top submitters on the right-hand side, as well as a timeline on the numbers of submissions. You also have the most recent dockets and most popular dockets. So just for an example, we can click on the most popular dockets, which is the Gainful Employment Student Assistance, one that was open from July 26, 2010 until the end of this month, end of January 23rd, 2012. You get a summary because this rule, and you also see the proposed rule. So what we're interested in is to look at the similarity of the comments. You can do so by clicking on the link here. And what it does now is this looks at the comments on this proposed rule. So you can see that 62% of the comments here are unique. So they could be individual submissions by individuals or also by businesses, but they don't have that many matches. But you also see that 38% of the docket here has had over at least 50% similarity to one or other comments in the docket. So of that 50% here, it actually equals to 5,409 comments. And at the different levels, you can see the distinguishing phrases. I'm scrolling through here so you can see the changes in them. And now we're actually just at the highest 50% level. But you can scroll down to, let's say for instance, we're interested in this, or this set. So what this chart here actually means is that these are the levels of similarity. So from the 5,409%, 5,409 comments that are in this bucket here, there's a 50% similarity. So on the next level, where they have 60% similarity, there still continues to be 1,823 comments. So you can go down to this level, where there is 90% similarity, and this is 308 comments that have these distinguishing phrases in each of the comments. So now you can also go down here and look at each individual comment themselves. And there's a little gradient here that explains the level of similarity. And a lot of times, just because of the way the information is populated, a lot of the stuff up here is going to be the same. But what is more interesting is the actual comments themselves. So you can see from this comment that there are lots of similarities, and this is the text that is repeated in this set of comments. So are there any questions just about this part, understanding the similarities?
I have a question.
Sure.
The percentages, do they matter? I mean, if you get a whole bunch of comments that are basically the same, do you want more of those or less of those, or how does that work? I mean, do you want like more individual comments, like more individual care, or if they're all alike, is it like somebody, this is part of your homework assignment and you better do this and send it in? I mean, so how does that work?
So the percentage numbers, basically what it means is if you look at all the comments in that bucket, that's what percentage of the text of each comment also occurs in other comments. So
I know, but is this something that you want, or do you want more individual comments, or do you want them all alike?
I think what is interesting is the similarity. So it's not necessarily what you want or don't want. It's just those who are commenting on this. So for this one, let's say for instance, there was some type of letter writing campaign, and that
There was.
Right. So this is how Docket Wrench could be useful, is so that it allows you, instead of just looking at the individual comments as PDFs or individual submissions, what it does is now aggregating the comments together.
And so can I just offer a comment as an ex-regulatory lawyer? Sure. In terms of assessing comments? Yep. This is useful in showing the impact of what's called spam email commenting campaigns, or AstroTurf commenting, of which the University of Phoenix organized a tremendous amount in this particular rulemaking. But the number of comments that are identical do not necessarily burden an agency. Right. This actually helps them sort through the material. What they have to do is respond to material comments, and spam comments are often not detailed enough to be material.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So I think just to talk for one more second about the percentages, what we're trying to do is let you sort of fine-tune it so that you can get a group of comments that has all the comments that are part of the form letter campaign, but not too many comments and not too few. And so it's kind of a Goldilocks problem where if the threshold is too loose, then sometimes you'll get multiple comments grouped together that aren't really part of the same campaign. And sometimes if it's too tight, then you'll lose comments from the group. And like what the right cutoff is going to depend from one docket to another. So the goal is just to give you a tool to sort of explore the pool of comments, and there's no like right level. And it's going to depend on the dockets and depend on your own judgment to decide what the right cutoffs are, if that makes sense.
I'm wondering, when they go to pass the legislation and stuff, are they going to listen to the canned comments or the individual ones?
The individual ones in depth. The spam isn't really adding anything that a major commenter to the rule hasn't said already. And where an agency gets tripped up in the review process in front of a court is not having responded to a material comment. And frankly, spam comments are not material.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Are there any other questions while we're in this?
Yes, just one brief one. This is Tom Mortensen. Do we have a way of defining if the comments are administrative or substantial or critical in nature? Is there some criteria that's used to define these comments? Because if you have a number of comments, and granted they may be all, some of them may be very similar, it would be more meaningful to me as an administrator to sit there and look and say, oh, these are just procedural or administrative type of comments, typos and so on and so forth, where these are more substantial and these are actually critical. Is there criteria like that in this system?
there's not really a good way to answer that question by automated means. Like, so all of the analysis that you're seeing here, it's a computer has looked at the text and made decisions about what is similar and what's not similar. Like, deciding for a computer to decide what's interesting is a much harder problem than deciding what's the same. I think that there are some cues that you could look at, like how long the comments are, for example. That longer comments are more likely to be substantive, but we don't, at least at this time, make any effort to guess on that for ourselves. And certainly regulations.gov doesn't tag comments in a way that would help us make that judgment. So I guess the short answer is...
I thought it was worth asking, so
yeah.
Appreciate it.
No, I mean, this is much better to find and isolate the spam and hopefully let you hunt more. I actually played with this docket. I'm a law librarian for a law professor writing in this area, and it was really hard to do anything with the docket because of the stupid way the Department of Education organized it and put it in regulations.gov. This would have been very useful.
And I should say, too, that a lot of agencies internally use tools like this one for their own administrative processes. It's just that the results of their internal analyses aren't exposed to the public in a way that you can see. So
right, that's one. But the queue should actually, I have several comments on this to continue with your presentation. I'll get in touch with you later.
That sounds great. Yes, so we'll give you our email and our contact information at the end of the webinar, and we're more than happy to chat more about ways to make the tool more useful, because I think that's one of the things that we do here at Sunlight is recognizing the data that's available from government agencies and different government bodies, and a lot of times it's just PDFs, and a lot of times it's not necessarily connected and you can't really analyze that information. And that's why we work on different tools such as Docket Wrench that really allows you to have a little more power behind what you're trying to do in terms of isolating sets of comments.
It was worthless in the old, when this was up and operating before there was just no way to analyze the docket given the way it was in regulations.gov from a public perspective. So this looks really neat.
Sure.
I have a general question. I've tried on 3 different computers to do any search on Docket Wrench, and all I get is a circling 0 for dockets or notice and proposed rules.
Okay, it's looking like the system is working fine for us, so...
Maybe if you could shoot us an email and a screenshot, we could be able to further diagnose it.
Yeah, and if you can include your operating system and browser version, we can try and help you out with that. Thanks.
Great. So while we're talking about the search function, let me go back to here to search, because a lot of times folks are not necessarily just browsing for comments, and they actually know which dockets they wanted to look at. So what you can do is you can just put in the docket number if you have one, and I just have an example here. 70492. So this is the way it should work. It should not be spinning. This is a live demo. This was not recorded ahead of time. So it's working for me. And what you can see here on the left-hand side is the docket number in which I've put in here. You can filter this more by adding another keyword if you have one. But this is the one in which I was looking for. So what you can do now by clicking on that is now I'm looking at this particular docket. You can see the timeline of the docket. And additionally, you can see kind of the highlights when the docket was revised or new releases happened. And this is pretty much a summary of the information that's below. See when the proposed rule was submitted and when folks were commenting. And on the right-hand side, in addition to the comment similarity in which we talked about earlier, you can see if there are any top comment submitters, and this one did not have any.
I'm a little surprised. Oh, that's because of the size. But there's going to be NRDC and the Utility Air Regulatory Group.
Sure, and I think that's a very good point to. Yeah, we can.
So I should explain a little bit also about the methodology for how this particular section works. Basically, what we've done here is there's a certain set of organizations and companies that we track for purposes of influence and campaign finance and lobbying and so forth from our Influence Explorer product, which is a separate campaign finance monitoring site that we maintain. So we've basically taken the names of all those companies and we search through for each comment. If it has a submitter listed, we search that submitter field for the names of all the companies that we care about. It's kind of an imperfect process because if the name isn't exactly the same or if it's an abbreviation, we won't catch it. And if the agency didn't ask for the company's name when they did the comment collection, then we won't catch it either. So for many dockets, we get good and interesting results from this top comment submitters breakdown, but the data's not perfect, and so sometimes there are some in there, but the IRS, for example, doesn't ever ask for the submitter name, or at least doesn't put it on regulations.gov. So it's an interesting but imperfect process, I guess is what I'm saying.
So what I just clicked on here was I was showing Influence Explorer, which is a different tool that we have. So I just put an X on. You can also see that we have regulations data here as well if you're looking for just a specific organization and entity. And we also talked about connecting this database because we're getting this
Where is this extracted from? Regulations.gov or with other things?
So far, it's just regulations.gov. So we have some amount of data, Federal Register documents basically for about 300 agencies, and we have comments for about 175. So it's a lot of agencies, but the big limitation there is that a lot of the independent regulatory agencies don't use regulations.gov for their comments. So at this time, we don't have comments from, for example, the FCC or the SEC.
Right, and that list is here at regulations.gov, the non-participating agencies.
And it's on the About page.
And it's also on the About page for Docket Wrench. So I just want to go back to the page we were looking at. So this is the docket, and we're looking at the different similarities here. And a lot of times, you see the comments submitted on the left-hand side. They're by individuals, and you can't really tell if there is a petition or something behind it. But sometimes it's actually even listed. So this one was a Sierra Club push to their members.
Now, how do you is there an easy way to find the detailed comments that the Sierra Club staff, lawyers, etc. would have filed apart from the AstroTurf campaign they would have mounted?
So this particular visualization tool is about just looking at the similar comments, but if you go back to the docket page, there's a link to view all the comments in the docket, so you can see all of them, and you can also search through those dockets with a keyword for Sierra Club, for example. I think it sounds like the feature that you want would be a list of all the comments that are specifically not in a similar group, which is an interesting feature, but one that we haven't had requested before.
Or actually a size limitation.
Yeah, okay.
Because once you get over a certain threshold in terms of the number of pages in a PDF, I think you're aggregating the material comments.
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting request and one that we could certainly look at adding, but we don't have a feature that exactly meets that need right now.
Right, and I don't know if folks are also following online, but I just did that. So I added the Sierra Club filter into the keyword of the docket in which we're looking at. So now if you can even see the Sierra Club listed.
But so many of these comments are probably going to be form letter comments.
Right.
So.
And the key group probably on the environmental side here that would not necessarily have been generating the AstroTurf comments the Sierra Club did would have been organizing a common response from the major environmental groups as NRDC.
Okay. Do you want me to look at NRDC?
Yeah, why don't you just put it in and see what we see? I could be wrong. I've never looked at this docket, but that's past behavior. I practiced environmental law.
Is there any questions?
You need an S after resource.
Oh, no resource. And then it's a plus.
So this is a senior scientist at NRDC.
Yeah.
Probably text is in
Yeah, this is the kind of document you want
attachment.
if you're really thinking about it in terms of learning, okay, about what a rule, what was the elite environmental group response to the rule?
Right.
Right. And for folks who are following, what I did was I clicked on the individual comments from the senior scientists at NRDC. And then what I also did was these were closed. So I just dropped down the attachments so you can actually read the text. And it also shows what type of document or type of file format that we had to extract the text from. So these were her actual comments.
Amy, I have a quick question about who gets listed in the database as a submitter. Is it individual names?
So it's basically whatever the agencies collect as a submitter, we evaluate. So some agencies only collect a name, some don't collect any separate submitter field, and some collect both a submitter name and a submitter organization. So we will use whatever they give us, but it varies from one agency to another.
And I think it should be submitter name and organization, but so many don't. Ed didn't.
Right.
Right, and I think the example that we had from earlier shows that. I believe this was the one that we saw, the one that was organized by Sierra Club. You didn't see the Sierra Club as part of the submitter name, but it was the individual person's name that was being shown.
One of the earliest examples you used when we first started out, I was following along on the web page and I clicked the more information button, and the person who submitted it, their name was there in the more information section. And I took that name and put it in parentheses up in the search box, and it came back with over 30,000 results. I mean, is there a way to search through the search box for individual comments by particular people?
So right now, the search searches the full text of the documents, which is probably not what you want. That's another possible feature that we'll add, is the ability to do a full text search on just the submitter field. It's a tricky feature to add because many agencies don't include that data. But yeah, again, we're still fine-tuning the search a little bit, so that's valuable feedback. And by all means, again, if you have specific technical concerns or you're not getting data back that you want, shoot me an email. I sent my email address over the comments in the chat here in the webinar.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So are there any other questions?
Yeah, where would I be able to send an email to with a screen capture?
So if you look at the chat in the webinar, I sent a message with my address. My name's Andrew Pendleton, and I'm the developer on this project. So hopefully you guys see that. It should be in a sidebar in your Ready Talk session. Cool.
Right. It's because I was doing a screen share. We weren't showing the the Ready Talk view. So I'm going to go back to the screen share. Okay. So those are some of the main functionalities of the search. You can search for, we've already shown search for agencies and search for the actual docket number, but you can also search for entities in which have submitted. I always use Exxon, but it could be anything that you're interested in. And then you'll find the the organization. And you can see the top submissions and also the top mentions in particular documents. So by clicking on that, I pretty much essentially just opened up the docket. It was the agency in which it was being the highest top submissions. So that's pretty much the search function and how to use Docket Wrench. And then on the home page, we also show a couple of other things. Popular searches, what people are searching at the time. And then the About Us page, what Andrew mentioned earlier, it's up here on the top right-hand corner. And you can read a bit more about the data and the methodology. You have anything you want to add?
Amy, the Explore Popular Searches column there, those are trending, or does somebody at Sunlight decide what goes up there?
Right now they're curated. We wanted to have some useful searches on the page at launch before anybody had searched for anything, but they will probably eventually be trending.
Right. And we just launched this tool on Thursday. So obviously, if you have any questions or if things aren't working, like the gentleman that asked earlier why his search was still spinning, feel free to let us know.
Absolutely.
Amy, how much time lag is there between the time somebody or a company or an agency, an outside group submits a comment and it appears here?
So there's a couple of different sources of lag there. The first is how long it takes the agency to post it on regulations.gov, which is variable. And then the second is how long it takes for it to get from regulations.gov to us. And we are trying for every day. Sometimes there will be a little bit of a backlog in our processing, but if you see a comment on regulations.gov that's more than, a week or so and it isn't appearing on our site, that's a problem. So, but that's sort of the goal is that within a couple days it should be on Docket Wrench.
When you, in the tools for analyzing similarity, start doing it right away?
Yeah, as soon as we get the comment from regulations.gov, we should have the similarity analysis ready.
It's one of the agencies that posts its comment closure period comments online. DOT and EPA do that. I assume you're still picking those documents out of regulations.gov.
Yeah, we get comments both from DOT and EPA, correct.
Right, and I also just want to stress that, for the different tools that we have, Docket Wrench is actually the largest database. So there are 3.5 million dockets that we have. 3.5 million documents, and then how many terabytes?
It's about three-ish.
3-ish terabytes of data is in Docket Wrench itself. So it is definitely one of our largest databases. And I think sometimes when you are, so like for instance, when I was looking at distinguishing phrases earlier, sometimes it'll take a little bit to load because it's going through all the different comments. And then while we're talking about regulations, I also just wanted to mention a third tool, and that's Scout. So Scout is our legislative search and alert tool that allows you to put in any keyword or specific bill that you're interested in, but it also has regulatory data as well. So let's say, for instance, I am interested in firearms. And then you can see here on the left-hand side is federal regulations. So I can create an alert for whenever a firearm is mentioned in a proposed rule, a final rule, or any of, I believe we even have pre-filed regulatory data. Yes, so what you can do is now you can create an alert for this. I'm not logged in. And what this will do is it can shoot you an email anytime firearm is mentioned in the regulatory process.
I'm a reporter, and I sometimes use regulations.gov to search under by geography to find out basically what people in interest back in the state that I cover are interested in. Can you do a geographic search with Docket Wrench?
We don't have geographic features right now. That's another set of features that I think that we would consider adding, but we don't. I think the goal here was to get something out the door and see how people use it. And then sort of decide from there what the demand is. But and yeah, I don't think we'd even talked about doing geography yet. But that's interesting. What kinds of pieces do you?
Right.
Oh, I'm in Washington D.C. covering politics and policies, so I might be interested in whether an industry or anybody in our state really is commenting. It basically might tip me to a potential story that we haven't seen or others haven't seen. So you're looking at something and you find that some company that you didn't even think of has submitted a comment to the FDA on something, and or something to the Coast Guard on regulation in a Great Lake, and you might be onto a decent story.
Cool. That's interesting. We'll add that to the list of stuff to talk about.
And
I'm trying to think of one website that's good at that on regulations. If you'll give me half a second, I'll continue to look for it because I'm blanking.
Sure, and then I was just, actually I have a question for Andrew. Can you put in geography as part of a keyword for a filter? Would that be effective?
You can put like the name of the state, that kind of thing, but we don't like geotag or anything like that right now.
Right.
Or search submitter address, which is probably what you would want to do.
Right. So. Are there other questions or other features that you think would be useful in Docket Wrench? Nope. Any other questions? We have Kathy here, who is our managing editor of the reporting group, and I know that they have used the tool and wrote a number of stories. Do you want to add anything?
No, I'll just say I was just admiring the fellow reporter on there. I thought that was a great initiative to talk about searching geographically. The other thing I would just say is that for us, from the reporting standpoint, obviously one of the things we look for is similarity in comments, because it indicates, this might address one of the questioners earlier, this does indicate what they call on Capitol Hill an AstroTurf as opposed to a grassroots campaign. So that can be useful for telling you when there's an organized effort to get something either done or undone. So it can be very useful for us. And, to me, this is kind of the under-the-radar lobbying. Everybody pays attention or tries to pay attention to the lobbying that's done on Capitol Hill. Once the law is passed, there's other ways to influence how that law is implemented, and this is a very interesting way for us to track that.
And we have a question online that asks, is there a timetable show for comments?
So on docket pages, you can see the timeline of comment submissions for that docket, and on comment pages, you can see sort of a mini version of that docket's timeline and where that comment falls on that timeline. So Yes, is the short answer. If you're looking at the comment similarity visualization, and you want to see that timeline, if you're looking at a comment text and you scroll to the bottom, there's a link to take you back to the information about that comment, so you can see the timeline and all of that information with it.
Are there any other questions? We're closing in on the hour.
I would just like to make one comment, and I so admire all the work that Sunlight Foundation does, and I just want to say that in front of everybody who's within hearing distance. I love this organization, and I think it's fantastic, and I love everything you do.
Thanks, we appreciate it.
Yeah, we really...
Take that.
We did not plant that participant. Okay, I guess if there are no other questions, Andrew gave his email, and you can also email me at angai@sunlightfoundation.com. I'd be more than happy to connect you with the folks here to help answer your questions, or if you want to get in touch with a reporting group, more than happy to do that as well.
Yeah, it sounds like there are some folks out there who are very knowledgeable and might have some good story tips, or folks who are working on stories who might need some reporting help. So we're happy to accept tips and offer help.
Anyone want to take on fracking in Dallas?
Oh, no.
Okay. Thought I'd ask.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and we are going to archive this webinar, and I will send an email out to, we have a training group for folks who are not familiar. I mentioned this earlier. You can sign up at training.sunlightfoundation.com. You can look at the different training events that we have, and we'll keep you posted on the different things and the new tools that we are creating.